Right, well, welcome everyone to the Property Perspective on today, the 24th of April. Super excited to be back on one of these episodes. And as always, you've got myself, Depesh, and you've got my colleague to my left, maybe your right, Shiv, who is the founder of Lifestyle Property. And I'm really excited about tonight's episode, actually. I'm going to start calling these episodes from now on, by the way, because I feel like
they are episodes.
a bit of a TV show, so this is quite cool. I'm excited about tonight's episode because we're actually taking you guys through not just a deal example, but actually a real life deal that we did for one of our clients where he invested in 3 properties, and quite recently actually. So this isn't something that happened 3, 4, 5 years ago. This is something that we invested in for him last year. And I believe that we're actually just finalizing one of those 3 deals, which completes his trifecta of properties with us as well. So really excited to get into tonight's one because we're going to go through the purchase prices, the discounts, the rental yields, how we've essentially given him better results than what we originally projected as well. And just an idea for you folks as well to see what's possible for you and how we can help you make your money work harder for you as well. So why don't you take us through
take us
through the magic of what we've done for this client. And obviously for data protection purposes, we will not be revealing names.
Yeah, exactly. What I will say though, first things to say is that this client came to us probably about a year and a few months ago. So let's say 24, 23. So it would be an end of 2022. And he said, I want to buy some properties with you guys. I've researched other companies and whatnot. Will you guys give me that real trust factor that I feel I can trust you? These are his first few properties that he's buying. He didn't want to make a mistake. And he was from London and the South. And he wanted to invest in the North because, like a lot of people, he understood that in the North, you're going to get better return. The capital growth is going to be better. So the overall picture from a return perspective is going to be much, much better. The second thing to say is that this client of ours had recently sold his business. And as a result, he wanted to buy these properties, but he just didn't at that time want all the faff of going through mortgage rate changes and all that stuff. And the reason why is because that was when, if you guys remember, when Liz Truss has just come in, the mortgage rates were crazy high. And he says, I want to buy these properties, but I have the cash to buy them. There's no need to mess around with mortgages. I'm going to buy them in cash. So what I'm going to show you here is 3 properties that he has purchased. He's purchased them all in cash. And now, and then I'll tell you about the magic of what we're going to be doing with him going forward. So let me share my screen and we should go through the first one.
Definitely. And just before you start going through the property, I can see a couple of people attending live on Zoom, and I can see a few people watching live on Facebook as well. So if you are here, do feel free to message us in the chat. Let us know that you're here, first of all. It's always nice to know that you are actually, we don't just want an attendee and then you've left your computer and then you're kind of just watching this in the background. So if you are watching live, do comment, do let us know you're here. And if you've got any questions while we're going through the process, please do jump in and ask your questions so that we can answer them live on the call for you. Sure, take it away.
And absolutely, like you always say as well, Dipesh, like really feel free to ask the questions here because there's loads of stuff that we're covering. And for a lot of people, you won't see any of this behind the scenes, this background information. I'm going to take you through exactly what we did here. And this is all kind of behind the scenes secrets, if you like. So this was the first property that we found for this client. Now, all of the properties that we buy, first things to say is that they're all freehold properties. So that means that we own the land. A lot of people have concerns, especially now, if you're from London, you'll have heard of Grenfell and the whole flat fiasco. So we don't want to be stuck with that. And so that's why we buy freehold properties. So this is the first property you'll see. It's a very nice property. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it would be a 2 or a 3 bedroom freehold house. And this particular one you'll see here is in Sheffield. Just to give you a bit.
Can I just ask you to zoom in on the property just so that everyone can see the details a bit more clearly? That is perfect.
There you go. Right. So there you go. So that's the first one. Now it says here the location is Sheffield. Now we buy in the Leeds market, the Sheffield market, and then the surrounding towns as well. So it may not be exactly in Sheffield, maybe just outside or just in the Sheffield region. And the purchase date on this one that we completed was the 20th of February 2023. So this is what, just over a year ago. The asking price on this particular property was £110,000. That's how it was on the market for. And at that time, there just seemed to be quite a few people that wanted to buy properties, even though the rates had increased. And so the purchase price on this one was £108,000. So it was marketed at a very realistic level to sell. You can look at the house that you get for £108,000 at the moment. You don't get these kind of houses in the north, in the south, sorry, for £108,000. Lovely house, lovely garden and everything, plus a driveway. The discount on this particular house, this was the first one that you found, was £2,000. And we've already, so that what that means is we've already saved £2,000. That's something that we need to understand. It's like we banked £2,000, it's in the bank already. The purchase and refurbishment costs on this particular property were £42,231. So let me just take you through what that would have included. That would have included the refurbishment of this property. This property, I can't show you the inside pictures right now, but ultimately it would have required some refurbishment works to be done to it, probably in the region of 20 grand or something like that. This would have been perhaps installing a new kitchen, maybe something to do with the bathroom, some decorating inside, doing some gardening on the outside, maybe sorting the roof out. All of these kind of things would have been included in the refurbishment cost. On top of that, obviously, there would have been normal stuff like the legal cost, the mortgage cost, the stamp duty, the survey cost, the lettings cost. Our fees are all included in here as well. So all in, the funds required for this property to purchase it in cash were £151,000, 231, 151,231. And you can see already that's quite cheap for a 2 or 3 bedroom property in the north, £151,000 all in, including all the costs. We then had a gross rent on this particular property of £9,300. And I'll tell you already that that's not what we expected. We expected, or certainly we illustrated, I should say, a lower amount, because we want to always kind of give you the worst case scenario and then wow you afterwards. So the expected rate, I think, if at the top of my head, was about £8,500. But in this instance, we managed to get £9,300. This is per annum. The ongoing management on that is 10%, so that's £930. So that's how much the management agent charges to manage the property on a fully managed basis. That means you don't have to get involved and mess around with it. Peace of mind is what we're looking for here. In fact, one of the questions that I was answering today is about how do we become an investor, not a landlord? One of the really important things about looking to invest in the north rather than looking to invest in the, around where you live, is that in the north, because you live so far away from it, you can't get involved. You can't be emotionally attached to the property. It has to be a cash machine for you. So although it looks really nice on this picture, ultimately it's a cash machine and it's going to give you cash every single month. And that's all you're interested in. So you're not really interested in whether, the bathroom is painted pink or whether it's got a nice bathtub in it. All you care about is how much money is it going to give me for the money that I'm putting into it. Then we have buildings insurance. Of course, every property needs to be insured, and this is specifically landlord insurance that we put onto here. And the cash flow, which is what we'd also known as the net rental profit, is the gross rent minus the costs of operating this property, is £8,194. So you can see there, his funds required was 151,000. He's making £8,194 of rental profit from it every year. And that gives us an expected gross yield. Remember, I told you that the rent that we expected was lower. The expected gross yield was 7.7%, but what we actually managed to get for this client was 8.6%. And hopefully most of you will agree, 8.6% is a pretty good gross yield, especially if this is the first property that you're looking at.
And this was incredible considering this was purchased last year, correct?
This was purchased last year. And in fact, let me tell you some more information about this, Divish, because I have, said that we're going to be really honest on this. Mm-hmm. On this particular example, as part of the due diligence process that we do, so once we've agreed that we're going to purchase the property, there's going to be about 3 months of due diligence that we do. This includes the legal work. This includes getting the mortgage and getting the survey sorted. This includes our project team going into the property, making sure that the refurb numbers are correct and that they all stand up, making sure that we have the gas engineer and the electric engineer that both go into the property and make sure that the gas and electric systems are correct. Whilst we were doing that due diligence, and this happens from time to time, we found out that there was a couple of other things that were included in the survey that we had not been able to initially see with our eyes. So let me give you an example. Sometimes you can't see the top of the roof. You can't see there's a hole in the top of the roof, or you can't see there's a crack in the roof. You can't see it with your eyes. But that's why we do all this due diligence before we buy the house, so that we can actually go and understand what the numbers are going to be. Our surveyor went into the property. He wrote a whole report. He said to us, look, there's some works that are required here. And long story short, we had we went back to the vendor and we said, look, we're going to need to do this additional works. I think it was about another £5,000 or something. We need you to discount the price. And long story short, he said to us, honestly, This is why it's already at £110,000 because we've already discounted that price. So we already, this one, I'm sure if we look on the market, in fact, I'll show you at the end of this Facebook Live, this property is worth a lot more today. And so he'd already discounted the price to take into account that work. What that meant is that from our perspective, whilst we had initially thought we were going to do, say, £15,000 worth of work, we now had to do £20,000 worth of work. So we went back to the client and said, listen, Mr. N, there's going to be some more work required here. Now, you are not obligated to buy this property right this second. We have not completed on the property, but we still think it's an amazing deal. We think you're getting a great price on the property. We think it's going to be a great rental, and we think it's worth going for, even though we're not getting the additional £5,000 off from the vendor. Do you want to go ahead? And after a couple of questions, Mr. N said, yeah, do you know what? This is a good property. I want to go ahead. So he's decided to go ahead with this. And the reason I'm telling you that is because even though there was additional refurbishment work required, I want you to look over here. The expected gross yield was 7.7%, but the actual gross yield was 8.6%. In every single property we have ever purchased for a client, this is over 350 properties, there has never been an instance ever where the actual gross yield on completion, once we've finished our job for the client, has been less than the expected gross yield. What does that tell you? That tells you that we are an under-promise, over-deliver company, and we always like to, assess the worst-case scenario. And of course, when you're doing this for yourselves, you have to assess the worst-case scenario because then it can only get better. Okay, so this is the first property that we did for our client.
So before you move on to the next one, just to be clear, folks, for everyone watching, at the end of us going through the 3 deals that we've done for this client, we are actually going to outline and show you what those properties are worth today, so you can see the difference of what investing today will do for you potentially in 1 year's time as well. Because we talk about property being a long-term game, and absolutely it is. When you're investing in property, you're looking at the next 5, 10, 15 years in terms of what growth potential it has for you. But at the same time, we're also looking for opportunities that have the potential to have growth in the short term as well. And we've managed to achieve that here as well. So do stick around for that. Shiv, before you move on to the next property, what I think is a really interesting point for people to hear about is how did we negotiate the gross rent, what we were expecting from 8.5K for the year, so £800 or £820,
whatever it was,
to actually getting the gross rent that we managed to achieve.
Yeah, so part of it is obviously comes down to the supply and demand in that area. We only buy in areas where the demand for properties is higher than the supply of properties, which means that the rents are going to naturally increase. That's the first thing. The second thing, and this is really important, if you go to the agent, in fact, I really need you to hear this. When you go to the agent, and this is a letting agent, for example, you say, I want to rent my property out, and you say, well, what rent can I get for this property? Guess what they're going to tell you? They're going to tell you a nice, easy number because everybody wants an easy life. So if they think, oh, well, I can get you £8,500 a year, they'll say 8,500. What our team do, because we know this, we understand how these people work, and because they understand how we work now, is we go back to them and say, well, we understand that 8,500 is a nice, safe number, but can we try more? Oh, yeah, of course you can try a bit more, but we can't guarantee anything. Well, we're not asking you to guarantee anything. We're just asking you to try more. Well, what do you want to try? So we give them an answer. We want to try, in this instance, 9,500 or something. Long story short, we end up renting it for 9,300. But here's the point. If you don't ask, you don't get. So again, if you're doing this yourself, what you've got to do is, first of all, make sure that whatever number that the letting agent gives you, you say, can we try a bit higher just for the first week or two? Because what happens after the first week or two, if it has no interest, you can always drop the rent. That's the first thing. The second thing you want to do is, now where we are with this particular property, a year later, once it's been rented for a year, guess what you can do? You can go back and renegotiate the rent. Yeah, you can up the rent again. And why should, and this is not something that you're doing because you're a greedy person, you want to increase the rent. You're doing this because every year, everything increases in price. And if you don't increase your rents, one day what will happen, this is what happened a couple of years ago when we had the mortgage price increases. The mortgage rates increase. You now go, oh my God, I need to increase my rents. Otherwise, I can't afford to keep the property. And now you have to go to your tenants and say, listen, I know you were paying 8,500, but I now need you to pay 12,500. And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. How can I pay so much more? This is crazy. You're being such a horrible person. And you're like, no, I've been such a nice person to you this entire time by keeping your rents low. And they say, this is ridiculous. We're going to take you to court. We're going to go to the council, whatever. And you say, I've only got 2 options. I either sell the property because I can't afford to keep it, or I increase the rents. Which one do you want me to do? So this is why every single year needs to be increase the rents. And what I think we need to do is we need to say, whatever the agent says, add 25 or 50 pounds extra per month, so £600 a year, and say, can we try it at this level? And what's the worst case scenario? It doesn't go at that level. You can always bring it down again. You can rent it at a slightly lower level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think that's super clear. So let's see property number two.
Property number two. Let me zoom into this one as well. This is property
Perfect.
number two. And the first thing I want you to realize about this property is, so location is, first of all, in Leeds. Now, the other one was in Sheffield. This one's now in Leeds. And the first thing I want you to realize is, in this property, you can see, look at it. It looks really nice, doesn't it? Wow. Really nice property, nice little bit of gardening and all that kind of stuff. Look at property number two. It looks all right. There's not really that much gardening. It doesn't just look as nice, does it? But
Not
here's the deal. We're buying cash machines. It doesn't need to look amazing. It just needs to house people. It needs to be structurally sound. It needs to be waterproof and all that kind of good stuff. It needs to be the right price. It needs to give us the right amount of money back. And ultimately, it doesn't need to have a nice big tree or anything like that. Now, what you can see on this particular property as well, you can see on the right-hand side, it has a nice little garage as well. Happy days. So the purchase price on this one is the second property we bought. The first one was in February, the 20th of February. Luckily, this one was on the 20th of April. We bought this property. And the asking price for this one was £175,000. So a lot more than the last one. And the purchase price on this one was £166,500. So we managed to negotiate with the agent and say, listen, for whatever reason, we want to go and get a discount. And I think if I remember correctly on this particular one, there was other people that were bidding on this property that were paying more money than we were willing to pay. So other people were bidding, let's say £170,000, £175,000. And sorry, just so that we are clear, I use the word bidding. It wasn't an auction. We were buying these from the agents. What I mean is there were other offers that were higher than our offer. But the reason why we win with the agents is because we buy from the same agents, and we've been doing this for 10 years now. So we have a relationship. And guess what? The number one thing that every seller wants.
Certainty.
They want to sell their house. That's why they put it on the market. They want to sell their house. So if there's two options, option number one, they get £170,000, but the likelihood is that they're not going to sell their house because 33% of sales fall through. So 2/3 of the chance they're going to go ahead, but 1/3 they're not. Or they take £166,500, so they lose £3,500. But some of that's going to go in tax anyway.
Yep.
But they get the certainty that they're going to be able to sell their house because they're working with professionals like us who do this day in, day out. That means that they're going to probably go with us. And that's what's happened in this instance. So we saved £8,500 on the price of this property. The refurb and purchase and refurb costs over here were £29,130. If I remind you again, this included the legal fees, the mortgage fees, the stamp duty, the lettings fees, the survey fees, the refurbishment costs, and also our fees for doing this, for setting this up for the client. So all in £29,130 for those costs. And once you've added in the purchase price that we bought the property for, £195,630. So here's an important thing to say. If you're buying in cash, let's go back to property one. Property one required about 150, property two needed 195. If you're buying in cash, we say to people, generally speaking, you're going to need somewhere between 150 and £200,000 once you've included all the costs of buying the property in it. So £195,000 was the all-in value for funds. And then the gross rent on this particular property, because obviously the value of the property is higher, the rent is also higher. So it's £11,100 for the gross rent. The ongoing management was £1,110, 10% of the gross rent. And the building's insurance was £250 on this particular property. So the cash flow, which is the rental profit, is 11,100 minus 1,110 minus 250 is £9,740. So our client from this particular property makes £9,740 of net cash flow or net profit every year from this particular property. And the expected gross yield on the property was 6.5%. Again, I always say to you, we lowball the numbers and they always come out more on top. The actual gross yield was 6.7% on this particular property. And like I said, not only is it a nice property in Leeds where prices are more expensive, but also comes with a nice little garage there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely love
Perfect.
that. So just
And one of the things,
what the comparison between what this property needed in terms of purchase and refurb costs versus property number one, what was the difference?
So let's go back and have a look. So the other one was purchase and refurb cost was £42,000, and this one was £29,000. That's about £10,000, £12,000 difference. And that £12,000 would ultimately have been the refurb because all the other numbers pretty much stay the same. So the refurb was £10,000 or £12,000 higher on property one than it was on property two. Another thing just to notice on this particular property is this is what they call an end of terrace property. So there'll be a house here. It might even be a semi-detached property, but the point is this wall is exposed to the elements. Just like, for example, your house or my house would be. And the back, there's probably also a garden. You've got the roof and all of these bits. So when we're looking at this property, on any property that we look at, we start from the top of the property and we do a viewing all the way from the top of the property, looking at the roof line, looking at the roof itself, looking at the guttering, the soffits, all that kind of stuff, coming down, looking at the windows, each individual window. And obviously we'll look at the windows from the inside as well, but from the outside, we take a cursory look to say, is there anything wrong with this window? Is the pane blown, or does the window need to be replaced? Look at the brickwork, really, really important. The brickwork, if you buy a property and it's got some, like the mortar's eroding, for example, because some of these properties are a little bit older, then that could cost a huge amount of money to get fixed. So we need to make sure we look at all of that stuff beforehand. We then have this bay window. Whenever there's a bay window, there's always this kind of LED flashing that goes on top of it. And then we have the door over here. This is a nice UPVC door, really easy to change if we need to. And this over here, people look at this and go, oh, it's not really a big garden, is it? The front garden. This is perfect. This is what we call a yard. And it's a low maintenance yard, as you can tell, because there's nothing really that's required in that. People come in the front gate. This is a gate over here. They come in, they go in the house. Perfect. They get to live in the house. This is exactly what we want from property, a low maintenance property that doesn't require too much work. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely love that and super clear. So let's see property number 3.
Property number 3. Let's get this nice and big for you as well. So property number 3, here we go. We have the location on this one again is Sheffield again. And this property, look at property number 3, completely different from first 2 properties. Again, it's going to be a 2 or a 3 bedroom property. That's what we buy. It's going to be a freehold property. That's what we buy. It's going to have an EPC of E or above. That's what we buy. It's going to be double glazed. It's going to be centrally heated. It's going to be in an area that is close to local amenities, close to good schools, and all of these things that are important for families, because that is our tenant that we're looking for. So when we go out to look for properties, we're always looking for properties that match this criteria. But again, very different property from the other 2 that you've seen so far. Yeah. So here's the property, the purchase date. Now you can see on this one, 29th of February, 2024, sorry. This is this year. So this is a year gone down the line. What happened with this instance is the client had enough money to purchase 3 property. In fact, he signed up for a 3 property package. Something happened at the time and he wanted to invest some of the money into something else. So he then came back to us and said, listen, Shiv, can I do 2 right now? And I'll do 1 at some point in the near future. And we said, no problem whatsoever. So he did the first 2 properties, came back a few months later, and we've now done the 3rd property, which is this one over here. The asking price on this one, £130,000. So if we remind ourselves, the asking price on the first one was 110, 175, 130. So slightly lower than the second one, slightly higher than the first one. Purchase price, £114,000. This is it. And as you can see, we always try and get some sort of discount from our property. So in this particular instance, we were able to negotiate a £16,000 discount. Now, there's lots of reasons why we can negotiate a discount, but generally speaking, there's one common thread. Can you guess what it is? Common thread across all the properties is that we know the agents. We've been working with them for 10 years. I think you've heard me say this before. If you haven't, then you've not been on my channel long enough. Our deal negotiator, her name is Jane. She goes to goes to every agent in Leeds and Sheffield, the ones that we work with, once a month, and she buys Mr. Kipling cakes, and she takes them around to them, and she gives them Mr. Kiplings, and she has coffee and drinks coffee and has Mr. Kiplings with them. That's her job. Because that's how you build relationships. People buy from people, especially in the property industry. And what you guys will also know, some people here will be thinking, oh, but if there was other offers of 100 and say in this instance, there's offers of 120, why would they take your £114,000 offer? Because, and here's what you need to know, when you're buying and selling large purchases, imagine that you're going to go to the estate agent. For a lot of people, the estate agent is like your accountant, like your solicitor. If the solicitor says sign here, you say, cool, I'm going to sign there. You don't read through all the small print. You don't really know what you're doing. You just sign what they tell you to sign. Your accountant tells you should invest in this thing. You say, perfect, I'm going to invest in that thing because you trust them, you believe them. And the estate agent is no different in this instance. People who are selling their properties, a lot of the time, they've chosen the estate agent. They've got 3 or 4 different quotes. They've chosen the estate agent because they trust that estate agent. So if that estate agent says to them, buy this property or sell this property to these guys, I know it's a lower offer, but here are all the reasons why they would come out better, then usually the person who's selling is going to say, I trust the estate agent. I'm going to do what they tell me to do. You know why? The first thing the estate agent will say is the other offers are from people we don't know. This offer is from someone that has bought and sold from us numerous times over the last 10 years. There is track record, there's credibility here. So we managed to get a £16,000 discount on this particular property over here. Then we have a refurbishment and purchase and refurbishment cost of 32,951. If you remind ourselves, the first one was 42, then it was 29, then it's 32. So much more like the second property. And again, this is legal costs, mortgage costs, survey fees, stamp duty, lettings fees, our costs, maybe even including, refurbishment and project management costs, also including licensing fees. I can't remember on this particular property whether there's a license required, but all of the fees, we're very transparent. And over here, I've just lumped them all together for ease. But on all of the deal appraisals that we do, we are very transparent about every single cost, because what I don't want is people to say, oh, I didn't know about that. It's on the deal. It's on the piece of paper that we send you, on the deal appraisal that we send you, the booklet that we send you. It says, here are all the numbers, so that you are 100% aware of all the numbers that you're going to have to invest. The funds required, again, this is if you're purchasing in cash, this is what this client of ours was doing, is £146,951. So let's call it £147,000. And the gross rent on this was £9,600. Once you take off the ongoing management of 10% and the building insurance of £257, why is it £257? Bigger house, right? Bigger house, more square footage, therefore likely to have a slightly higher insurance premium attached to it. So the cash flow on this particular one is 8,383. Now what we've got here is on property number 1, it was 8,000 something, property number 2, 9,700, and property number 3, 8,300. So we can see that we're looking at roughly in the region of £8,000 to £10,000 of net rental profit every year from each one of these houses, roughly, if you buy with cash. Okay. The expected gross, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I just said perfect.
Yeah. So the expected gross yield on this one is 8.4%. And some of you will be sitting there going, oh, hold on a second. Why is the actual gross yield only 8.4%? I always tell you that it's going to be more than the expected gross yield. Well, in this particular instance, on this particular property, purchase date 29/02/2024, we are only 2 months down the line, not even. That means that we still have not completed the refurb and have not yet rented it out. So what we know is that more than likely, the refurb might be slightly under what we budgeted it to be. And also the rental is probably going to be more than we budgeted it to be. So although it says 9,600, this could easily be 10,000. And that would obviously increase the gross yield from 8.4% to whatever it goes up to. So I've just left it as what we illustrated it, but it probably will go up from here. Does that make sense?
It does. And I've had actually a really good question come through.
Yeah.
From Elizabeth on the Facebook Live. So in terms of the ongoing management costs for each of these properties, how do we decide who manages the property? Is it just one agent that manages all these properties? Because obviously these are in different locations.
Different locations.
Or do we have different agents, and how do we choose them?
Great question. So we have different agents is the first point. In fact, this is true for all of the partners that we work with, the solicitors, the mortgage advisors, the surveyors, etc., including the letting agents. We work with multiple partners. And the reason we work with multiple partners is because we never want to have just one partner that gets a bit too big for their boots and that thinks that they can boss us around. So we always have multiple partners for every single partner that we work with. In this example, like you said, because they're different locations, there's different agents that work in different locations. And in the early days, what I used to do, and in fact, we've done this until very recently, until when we started up the Sheffield office three years ago, I buy the first 10 properties in a location, and I give each of the properties to a different agent that has been recommended to me. Different agent. Small agents, big agents, different kind of agents based in different areas. And then what happens is I go through the pain for a year of having loads of different agents and figuring out which one is the best. Now, fortunately for me, I have a portfolio manager, so it's a portfolio manager that does that rather than me. But she, at the end of the period, and we do it on a quarterly basis, she assesses them against a criteria that we already have listed. Who are the best agents? And this comes down to, number one, who is the best agent from a client perspective, i.e. communication with the client, statements being sent on time, they're always correct, all of that kind of stuff. Number two, who is the best agent for us to work with? What does that mean? That means, well, when we're doing our service, obviously we want somebody that's going to like work with us rather than someone who's going to be obtuse and they're going to say, no, you've got to follow our way of working. We say, no, you've got to follow our way of working because we're going to give you loads of properties and we've got our specific way of working. So we want someone that is going to follow our way of working. And the third thing, and this is really important, we want someone that's going to have our back and we're going to have your back. This is not often talked about, Dipesh, but sometimes we make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. What we want is when there's a mistake that's being made, for whatever reason, we don't want the agent to then call the client and say, oh my God, did you know that Lifestyle did this? They're such a bad company. But we want them to call us and say, guys, did you know that you forgot to do X, Y, and Z, or you did X, Y, and Z? Oh no, cool, let's go and fix it. We don't need to turn mountains into molehills. And all I'm trying to say here is when you are with a friend, your friend, if you do something wrong, they're going to whisper in your ear, mate, you did that thing wrong. When you're with somebody that's not your friend, they're going to shout it out to everybody. We don't want to shout to everyone. We want to come in. If we did something wrong, come and tell us, and we'll go and fix it. And that's what we want. So we want somebody that's going to work with us and make sure that at the end of the day, if there's the reason for all of this is we always think down the line. If there's a problem and a client says, Shiv, I'm having difficulty with this agent, could you help me? I want to know that I can pick up the phone. This is also one of the things that I never explain to people, is every partner that we work with, I personally have to have their mobile number. I don't want an office number. I don't want to work with a company. I want to work with a person. And the reason why this is important, and you'll all know this because you'll all be on WhatsApp right now, is because if something goes wrong, I want to WhatsApp the person and say, what's going on? Can you check it? Whether it's 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night, I want them to see my WhatsApp. I don't want to be an email that goes to an automated inbox that comes back to me. So it's really important we have those relationships so that we can work together to resolve issues, because guess what? There are going to be loads of issues. And in fact, one of the ideas that we have for a Facebook Live in the future, Dipesh, is to talk through the issues, because people think, oh, it's just as easy as you ask them, I want to buy this 100 grand property. Here's my money. Thanks very much. I bought the property. Gosh, it takes us 8 months to get this thing set up. There is 8 months worth of issues. We'll talk about those another day.
And I think just to add to what you just said in terms of how you operate, which is if you're buying a property, if you're working with a lettings manager and we're passing those same service providers to our clients, you want to be able to speak to those people. And I think it's really important to remind everyone, and if people don't know, we actually operate in the same way. So when you become a client of Lifestyle Property, you're not going to be passed around multiple people to have a conversation. You actually have a WhatsApp group between myself, you, and the delivery.
Our team, yeah.
And all communication happens in there. So if you have a question about something, you actually have the ability to message and ask a question, and we respond to you in that WhatsApp group, because the way that we operate is the same way that we would expect our clients to want us to operate. So we understand that we want to speak to someone and get something resolved as quickly as possible. Why wouldn't we then do that for our clients as well? So I think that's just something that's really important to highlight. And yeah.
And on that point, actually, what I always say to people is, you know this now, Dipesh, that we're a lifestyle family. All of our clients, they form a lifestyle family. In fact, one of the things we're going to do soon is hopefully set up a community, but we're a lifestyle family. What that means is we're not supplier-client relationship. We are partners. We're trying to achieve the same goal, which is to grow your portfolio over time. And people say to us, oh, well, when does your service to us end? That's what people say to us. And we say, look, contractually, our service to you ends once the property's been rented out, assuming there's no issues, that's our service done to you. But of course, the WhatsApp group stays open forever. We never close the WhatsApp group. And the reason why we don't do that is because we know that every client of ours, like this client, doesn't want to buy 1 property or 2 properties or even 3 properties. They want to buy a portfolio of properties over the next decade, over the next 2 decades. And so that means that if we keep in regular contact with you, if we help you when you need help, if you help us when we need help, oh, good, we need, I don't know, some Google reviews. Can you please go, you haven't done one for us. Could you do one for us? We help you, you help us. Then guess what? When it's time for you to buy the next property because you have some extra money or because you've got a refinance on your property, who are you going to come to? You're going to come to us. So there's a mutual kind of beneficial relationship for us to stay. That's why we keep the WhatsApp groups open between us.
Absolutely. And speaking about exactly that scenario, which is, what happens a year or 2 years from now when that property has increased in value, you've collected the cash flow from there as well. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you actually have the data laid out for the 3 properties that we've just spoken about. Obviously, we know that one of them is just about to come to its completion, because that's the one happening live right now.
This one, yeah.
But let's have a look at where those first
looks like
and what they look like today.
So here we go. Can you see these numbers?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the portfolio appraisal that we did for this client. These are the 3 properties that he's purchased, 1, 2, 3. And then we've got the type of property they were. So this was a 3-bedroom, a 3-bedroom. So they were all 3-bedroom properties. This was a mid-town house. You can see from the picture. This was an end terrace property, like I said, at the end of a terrace. And this was a semi-detached property. So that means there's only one other house on the other side. There you go, right? And I've got the purchase dates in there, the asking prices, the purchase prices, the discounts we said. So the total asking price was £415,000. The total purchase price was £388,500. And like I said, therefore, the total discount was £26,500. Okay, so that's really important to realize. And although we need to make sure we don't get bogged down in the discount. And the reason why is because, like I said to you, this particular property was already on the market at a very good price. So people think, oh, you only got £2,000 off that one because it was on for a good price, a really good price, because they wanted to get it sold quickly. Yeah. So don't get bogged down so much on the discount. But the point is at least that we saved £26,500 over this 3-property portfolio for our client. The next thing is we had the refurbishment and the purchase cost that I showed you. I lumped them together in the other sheets that I showed you, but I've broken them out here. So this one was £26,000. This one was £10,000. This was £14,000. If you remember, we said there was roughly a difference between £10,000 to £12,000 between this one and this one. That's what we said. And the purchase cost, like you say, are roughly the same, more or less the same. So in total, the funds required were £442,404. So this is how much cash was required for these properties to go ahead. The gross rent in total, the client is making £30,000. Now, I told you that this property has not yet been rented, 9,600. So likelihood is it's probably going to be more than 9,600. But on the assumption that it at least gets rented at the price that we said, and like I said, 350 properties later, none of them have been rented for less. So the idea is that it's going to be at least £30,000 worth of gross, and that turns into £26,000 worth of net cash flow, which is net rental profit. So this client of ours spent £442,000, is getting £26,000 a year, and ultimately works out here as a gross yield. If we average these three numbers out, it works out as a gross yield of 7.7%. And I think most people would agree that 7.7% on a rental gross yield is really a good point, because what we have not even considered yet is that each of these properties is probably going to grow between 5 and 10%. Let's say 7.5% a year. Let's say 10% just to make the maths easy. If I've got 415 grand, then on a yearly basis, as well as the 7.7%, as well as the £26,000 worth of rental profit, my property portfolio is growing at a level roughly of 40 grand a year. Yeah, roughly. If you lose 10%, it'll be 41,500. Let's say 40 grand a year. 40 plus 26, that's £66,000 a year I'm adding to the value of my assets. So I initially started with 442. I'm adding 66 a year. That's pretty good. So we're looking at obviously over double, they call it double-digit return. 7.7 plus, let's say 7% on the capital growth. That's 15% return.
I mean, you say pretty good. I say it's excellent. That is
excellent.
Huge return for sure.
And also actually really interesting to note here, Dipesh, it's a huge return, but it's also in a relatively safe asset class.
Yeah.
So some people will say, oh, well, I can get really good returns in the cryptocurrency market. Yeah, but you're investing in a market that we don't even know is going to exist tomorrow. Like it literally could collapse tomorrow. Houses, on the other hand, can't collapse tomorrow. And the reason why they can't collapse tomorrow, unless there's a massive issue, in which case, we've got bigger problems than houses collapsing. If they can't collapse because each brick that's used to build the house is worth money. It's tangible. And so the value of houses rarely come down too quickly, but they do increase, as you can see in these examples. So now what I did was I said, okay, well, we know that we bought these two properties about a year ago, and this one was only bought just now. So we don't need to look at this one necessarily. But what's the current value of these two properties? We bought it for 108,000. This one is now worth 130,000.
Excellent.
Remember what I said to you about the fact that this was already a cheap property? So I want to really emphasize this to you, because people always say, oh, but you only saved £2,000 on that purchase price. No, it's now worth 130. So if we look at this, we bought it for 108, it's worth 130. That's £22,000 I've gained over the year. On a £110,000 property, that's what? Like 20%. That's a big increase.
20%, yeah, which is huge.
Then we have over here £180,000, this current value. We bought it for 166,500. So we've got the what's that? 13,500 pounds on 175. Okay, so that's what, like 7%, 8%, something like that. Good, nice little increase there. That's the 7% plus the 6.7% that we're getting on the rental. That's not a bad, or as you say, a pretty excellent return. And this one again, £114,000 we bought it for. It's already worth £140,000. We have just bought this on the 29th of February. Bought it for 114. You've already made 140. That's what that's £26,000 already banked. Really
in,
important to realize these are banked already.
in 3 months.
In February, March, April, May. Yeah, in less than 3 months.
Literally less than 3 months. There you go.
Yeah. And remember, like, let's not take away from this, Dipesh. This is a long-term investment. This is a long-term property. So we shouldn't be looking at it like this, but I just want to show you, like, when you buy a portfolio, some of them will be a little bit higher on the asking price. Some of them will be a bigger discount. Some of them will be a bigger capital return. Some of them will be a bit lesser on the rental return. But what you've got to do is you've got to realize you're buying a portfolio and that there's going to be swings and roundabouts. And so you don't get caught up on each individual property. You're going to buy portfolios because they're all going to work out if you do it through us at least. Now, here's the magic. You want to see the magic?
Let's do it. Let's see some magic.
I've said to our client, Mr. N, I said, Mr. N, we're now at this point where we bought this property. We're just about to rent this property out. You spent £442,000. That's all your money. It's tied into all the properties. What's the plan now going forward? He said, well, my plan was to leave these running until they, what did he say? Well, basically just leave these runnings. And then in a couple of years' time, once the mortgage rates come down a little bit, I'll refinance them and I'll think about what to do with the money. I said, listen, I've got a better plan for you. This is my personal opinion, okay? My personal opinion on the market is that right now, rates are about 5%. I think they're going to come down over the next year or 2 years. They'll come down to maybe about 3.5%, 4% maybe, but it's not a significant amount. It's not a huge amount that they're going to come down, or at least I should say, you're waiting for the rates to come down by 1.5%, but you could be doing something else with that money that makes you way more than the 1.5% that you're going to save by the rates coming down. So here's what I said to Mr. N. Why don't you do this? Why don't you refinance your properties immediately? Right now, 75% mortgage. What will now happen is it's worth 130. The bank is going to the lender is going to give you £97,500 into your bank account. It's worth 180. The lender is going to give you £135,000 into your bank account. It's worth 140. The lender is going to give you £105,000 into your bank account. So in total, the value of the properties is 450. But the lender is going to give you £337,500 back into your account. You still own all three properties. You still get the cash flow, but you now have £337,500 in your account. That means that you have invested not 450, not 442, but you've invested £105,000 to buy these three properties. 105 divided by 3, £35,000 each. Is that right? 369, yeah, about right. Yeah, £35,000 each to buy these properties. Not a bad deal. Then what we do need to take into account is that there is going to be some, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're still there?
There is going to be some additional interest to pay, right? Because we bought them all in cash. There was no interest on that. Although, of course, we should take into account interest on our own money, but we never do that. So what we're saying is now that we've got the bank's money, the bank's going to charge us interest. And what I've done here is I've calculated at a 5% rate, which is what we've got today. The interest here is £16,875. What that means is we were making £26,000 of profit, but we have to take off this £17,000 worth of interest. So now we're only making £9,500 worth of profit. People say, oh, why are we making so much less? I don't want to make less. I want to make more. Wait, here's where the magic comes. Okay. The first thing is we have to realize this 16,875, when I reduce that from 5.5% to 3.5%, sorry, from 5% to 3.5%, I can't remember off the top of my head, but that 16,875 comes down by like 8 grand or something. It's a huge discount. And of course, that amount then it goes onto your cash flow. You make that much more. So over the next 2 or 3 years, as the rates come down, we were going to benefit from that. And ultimately, our cash flow is going to go up. But let's forget that for a second. We've got this £9,442 worth of post-refinance cash flow after we've got the mortgage on the property. This is for 3 properties, but I also have £337,500. Now, on the basis, what can we do with it? On the basis that we say that all of our properties need somewhere around £70,000 per property, 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, with a little bit of luck, we can probably buy 5 additional properties, okay? So we can buy 5 more properties. We've only got 3 here. We can buy 5 more. Now, what we're going to do is some quick maths with you, okay? We're making £9,000 on 3 properties. How much, if we can buy 5 more, we'll have, how many properties will we have if we can buy 5 more?
We'll have 8 in total, including the 3.
8 in total, exactly. So now what we want to do is, if we just extrapolate these same numbers, we just take the average of the 3 and we extrapolate. So now instead of having what do you call it, 9,000, we're going to have 25,000, but we're going to have 8 properties. And the point here, let's make sure that's correct. Yeah, we're going to have 8 properties, and each of those 8 properties is going to be going up in value. I've just said to you that these 3 properties here have gone up in value by 40 grand a year, if we assume 40 grand a year. Well, if we have 8 of them instead of 3 of them, that's going to be 40,000 divided by 3 multiplied by 8 equals, this is a big number. Let's see if we can turn it into an actual number. Yeah, so every year your portfolio is going to grow by 100 grand,
which is
because you've got 8 properties.
I think this is where the magic, like obviously we're talking about what's happening now and over the next couple of years, but we're looking at property investment for the long term. So we're looking at the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So if you think about these numbers, they start to get monumental when you look at 5 to 10 years down the line, because don't forget, as you add your number of properties to this portfolio, we can refinance again a couple of years from now, another couple of years after that, depending on how the market's moving. So then what we now have as 8 properties essentially could get us to 16 properties, to 24.
Totally.
And this is
exactly that.
Really makes a difference.
And people always say, you know, I think, Dipesh, where we've been going wrong is we keep saying to people, buy a house, it's going to make you 3 grand a year net. And they're like, oh, 3 grand a year, like I'm spending like 70 grand. It's such a little amount. What's the point of doing it? Should I bother doing it? It's 3 grand. Listen, this is not 3 grand. This is 3 grand to get started. But as you can see from our client N over here, you could easily be making so much more than 3 grand. Rental plus capital, 100 grand on the capital when you do this way that I've just showed you. And that's per year. And then on top of that, like we said, in every 5 years or so, your equity that you built up plus the rental cash flow, if you add those 2 numbers together, you can double your portfolio without putting any additional money in. So here, if we have 8 properties today, in 5 or 6 years' time, we can refinance that portfolio, buy another 8 properties. So we now have 16 properties. And by then, the interest rate will have come down from 5% to 3.5%. So all of a sudden, we're now looking at making, say, instead of £300 per property, we're making £500 a property. When you have 16 properties making £500 a property, that's £8,000 a year. Sorry, a month. £8,000 a month. Most people don't earn £8,000 a month. This is £8,000 a month without waking up, without doing anything. And if people say, oh, but I love my job, go to work. Make £8,000 extra by not really doing a huge amount. And this is the beauty of investing in the North, where you are hands off. You're an investor. You're not with properties that are in the South. Like if you live in the South and the properties are in the South, what you're doing is you're going around and you're saying, I want to buy that property because it's next to me, and if something goes wrong, I can fix it. And now what you're doing is you're using your time to try and to make more money. What we do is we realize that there is only one thing that we actually have, and that's time. So we don't want to use our time. We want to use our money and let other people use their time. Let the management agent use their time. Let lifestyle property people use their time. They will use their time to create wealth for us. Ultimately, they will use their time to create time for us, or give us back our time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing that's really important to touch on with the examples that we've given today, obviously with the client that we've just demonstrated, this client had the ability to buy these properties in cash because he had the sale of a business. So he had a cash injection for himself, and that's why we did a cash purchase. So if you can bring up the spreadsheet one more time, just for people, because obviously everyone's in a very different financial position as well. So not everyone's going to have the cash to buy properties outright, and a lot of people. And actually, the most typical scenario for us is our clients are buying properties with mortgages. If someone who's listening today or is listening to this recording wants to buy 3 properties, but would be to buy from a mortgage perspective, what kind of capital allocation would they need for us to create the exact same or very similar portfolio for them?
Yep. So I've just done the calculation right here. You can see it. So what I've done is I've said the purchase price, you're going to get 75% mortgage on that purchase price. So you're going to get £97,125 worth of deposit is what you're going to need. Plus, you're going to need the refurbishment cost and the purchase cost for these 3 properties. That's In total, £200,000. So the answer to your question, Dipesh, is you can have a 3-property portfolio from £200,000. That's how much you need.
Perfect. So, I mean, that's obviously a significantly lower amount of cash required to actually still achieve the same result. And
Yeah.
this is why we invest in the North, because the barrier to entry is so much lower that it actually gives you the chance to create real generational wealth.
Yeah. And the worst case scenario, by the way, Dipesh, worst case scenario, you say, I'm actually just at the beginning of my journey. I absolutely don't have £200,000. No problem. Buy one. You don't need to buy three. Three would be fantastic because you can go in 5 years' time, three can double to six. In 10 years' time, six can double to 12. So at the end of 10 years, you'll have 12 properties, £500 a month each. That will be £6,000 a year of rental income in 10 years' time. Okay. Plus capital growth. Here we say, look, if you don't have enough money to buy three, just buy one. Now your growth is going to be slower. You buy one now, in 5 years' time, you'll have two, in 10 years' time, you'll have four. But four at £500 each per month of rental cash flow is still £2,000 a month. And that's on the basis that you don't put any additional money in. The likelihood is that next year or the year after that, you're going to have some more money. You might buy another property yourself. So all of this is very, very achievable. But the real message here is you have to get started. Everyone is waiting for this perfect time to invest. Let me tell you a secret, Dipesh. There is no perfect time. You know why there's no perfect time? Because when the mortgage rates are really high and no one else wants to invest, the prices are negotiable and we can negotiate discounts. When there's really low mortgage rates, everybody wants to invest, and so the prices go up. The prices are higher, and you can't negotiate the discounts as much. So ultimately, you can either, it doesn't matter when you buy, you're going to win either way.
Absolutely. I think there's two good things to touch on this. Number one, Upple's just written a comment in the live chat as well, which I think is really important to share. He's 51 and he only started buying buy-to-let properties a year ago. And if he had started this at the age of 27, who knows how many properties he would have had right now. And Upple, thank you so much for writing that comment, because me and Shiv were actually talking about this, I think it was yesterday or the day before. The properties that you first purchased around the Leeds area back in 2016 and 2017, how much was that property? Similar 2 or 3 bedroom house, full road, exactly the same type of property. What was that value?
So first of all, it was 2014, 15 that we purchased them. And the first one we bought, off the top of my head, it was, so there's a couple that we bought in quick succession. There was one that was £78,000. There was one that was £65,000. There was one that was £73,000. There was one that was £87,000. That woman actually went to go and live on a boat afterwards. But and it's funny, I don't know why I remember these numbers. I remember the numbers, and I remember the postcodes, I remember all these properties. And they're not, honestly, they're not even nice properties. They're just cash machines. Someone said to me, do you know the names of your tenants? I don't know the names of my tenants. Now, I'm not telling you that that's a good thing. I'm just saying that I'm in a position where I want to have a portfolio manager because I want to buy back my time. So the portfolio manager manages the letting agents manage the tenants. I don't need to get involved at all. And that's just the way that we have decided to set ourselves up.
And I think the reason I wanted you to share that as well is because property traditionally always goes up in value. Even when there's market crashes and there's a dip, there is a rebound in the pricing and it continues to grow. And for anyone that's listening to this thinking, oh, well, you started off buying properties when they were 60 or 70,000 pounds and now it's 150. Yes, that's true. So obviously the pricing has gone up. But if you're sitting around thinking, I want to start now, but now the price is too high, I can almost guarantee you that if we wait another 6 months, if we wait another year, you've already seen what we've just shown you with our client, we're calling him Mr. N, but I almost gave away the name. But, in just a year on some of these properties, they've already increased significantly in value. So if you are sitting here thinking, do you know what? I've got money set aside. I want to put it to work for me. And I want to make sure that I'm securing a really sound financial future for myself. Then this is a great opportunity.
But property is, and for most people, the reason why property is also really good, not only is it tangible, it's inflation proof, it gives you two incomes, the rental income and the capital growth, all of these really great reasons. But fundamentally, we understand it because we all live in houses. So the purpose of someone pays rent to live in my house, we get it. if I say the same thing to you about the stock market, most people have no idea why the stock market goes up and down. And we say the stock market as if it's like one thing. It's made up of so many different companies. Why do individual companies go? It's very complicated. And I'm not even getting into like trying to get into collateralized debt obligations and all kinds of other like complex financial instruments. We're talking about a property which we fundamentally understand. We own the house, someone lives in the house. You know why we understand it, Dipesh? Because when we were younger, there was a game we used to play.
I still play
We
it.
we still play it. It was called Monopoly, and we all played bloody Monopoly, and we all understand how it works. Now, the fact of the matter is that if you played Monopoly and you won, then you will win here. If you played Monopoly and you lost, then you need to win here because you don't want to lose in life. And so that's why you need to get involved and get involved sooner rather than later. The prices will keep going up. And people said to us, Dipesh, when we bought one of our first residential houses in London, oh, it's so much more expensive than it used to be. My gosh, do you remember when it used to be lower? Guess what? It's increased in value. And like you said, in 10 years' time, it's going to be higher than it is today. And 10 years, 20 years' time, everything's going to keep increasing. Now, the difference is, and here's what I fundamentally believe, is that the north is now where the growth is going to be. It has been previously in the south, and so a lot of people think it's going to continue to be in the south. But how can you have growth only in one region and not in the other region? What will happen is this region is going to become completely different from this region. We can't have that. We're one country. So once what happens is this region grows, London, and then Birmingham grows and Manchester grows and Leeds and Sheffield and all these other places. And it's like a wave that goes across. London's already grown for the last 30 years. Birmingham's already grown for the last 20 years. Manchester, the last 15 years. It's now the turn of these smaller Yorkshire towns, Leeds, Sheffield, etc.
Absolutely. And it's a classic case of the domino effect, right?
Yeah.
Now, there is another question that has just come up on the live as well from Amit. He said, not sure if it's already been covered, but is it worth buying through a limited company? Amit, that's a great question. And actually, we have a podcast episode coming out specifically to cover this topic. And actually, what might be a great idea is Chip on our future live, and we'll bank this for a future live because I know we're about to run out of time as well.
Yeah.
But future live, what we could actually do is maybe work through some numbers of what the
Personal
difference
limited
would be
company.
for someone on a limited company versus buying in your personal name. So Amit, thank you so much for that question. So do keep an eye out for the podcast that's releasing on that, and that's giving us a great idea for what we can do for a future live as well. So this is why these questions are so important, because this is what everyone wants to know the answers to, and the more questions that get asked, the more we can answer those questions live in a moment if we can, or actually create a whole new live just to cover that question. Thank you everyone so much for taking the time out of your evening to listen to us today. I've just posted a comment which has our website on there as well. So if you are interested, if you're sitting here thinking, do you know what? I've been sitting and thinking about investing in property for the last couple of years. I've seen all the, the scare tactics in the market and the news and everything, and I've chosen for whatever reason not to take action, but you've been listening to us and you're now at that stage thinking, do you know what? I think it's time to talk about how we can move forward. Click on the website, have a look through our brochure. There's a WhatsApp link on there as well. You'll be able to chat directly with one of the team, and we can help you get started on your journey.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Dipesh. Really appreciate it. It's been a great chat, and been really good to go through the numbers with the people that are watching.
Definitely. Guys, have a great evening, and we'll see you on the next live.
Take care.